Hello everyone, I'm CJ Jewell.
And I'm Pierce Butler.
And welcome to Movie Busters, where we break down ours and your favorite movies alike. Today's podcast episode is on the film Ocean's 11, as well as what we liked about it, didn't like about it, and trust me, there's a lot that we didn't like about it.
But before we start our deep dive into what we think about the movie, here's the basic idea of Ocean's 11, just for anyone who hasn't seen or heard of the film. CJ.
So, the basic film premise is Danny Ocean, an ex-convict who just got out of prison for a heist, obviously. His whole, the first thing he does as soon as he gets out of jail is he gets a bunch of guys together and robs this guy named Garcia. He steals, I think it was $58 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the whole reason why he does this, which you find out later in the movie, is he does this for basically revenge, because Garcia stole, his wife, quote-unquote.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he got sent to jail, his wife didn't divorce him, but left him and started dating Garcia. So he, stole from him as, a, kind of a snapback.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a pretty simple premise of the movie, but, you'll see. We'll talk about what we didn't like about it, because there's a lot more in-depth stuff. But what do you like about the movie? Tell me that.
Personally, what I like about it is I feel like the movie, first of all, the cast was phenomenal. I absolutely loved the actors that were in this movie, like Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, a bunch of them, because I feel like they all played a really important part of the movie. But and in certain parts, I think that it was very well done, just because they planned it very well, before they went into it. But then, of course, certain parts were not really that great, just because it didn't really explain to you how how they got to where they were. But in total, what I think about it that I think was great was just this scene where they were rappelling from the elevator, which was pretty awesome. Let's be honest.
There's a lot of dramatic scenes.
Yes, very dramatic.
A lot of the action in the movie is really good, really believable, especially when compared to the original film. Oh, by the way, this is a remake movie, just so anyone knows that.
It's a remake of the 1960 edition.
The 1960s Ocean's 11 movie. That acting and that special effects, obviously, from being super old compared to this movie.
Oh yeah, of
just
course.
Has a different level of tier. I don't know how to say it.
It's because it's new technology. You know what I mean? It's better than what it was back then.
Better CGI, better special effects.
Because back then, it was black and white, and you could just tell in certain parts of the scenes that you could just tell that you know what I mean? They threw everything at you at one time. But There's a lot of great scenes from the movie, and I thought it was pretty cool though, how in the one scene where they actually robbed the money from the guy, it was just very I feel like it was beneficial because it showed potential for a lot of movies in the future. It gave them a heads up on how they could plot the story.
Yeah, it really, whether you wanted to believe it or not, it really did bring back the whole heist genre music.
Exactly, and Ocean's 11 kickstarted that. You know what I mean? It really brought
nice
a lot of
that.
Positivity to the whole theme.
Now everyone's doing heist movies now. Especially my boy Dwayne Johnson over here.
Right. So CJ, explain to us the flaws, that we didn't like in our pet peeves. Oh boy.
There's quite a few. So my major thing I didn't like about the movie is that they didn't really describe what happens until the very last minute. They'll have these montages where something happens and then one of the characters is oh, how did they manage to do that? And then they'll just frame it immediately after and have a montage showing what they did. Mm-hmm. And instead of coming out as oh, this movie was planned in general, it's they made the one half of the movie, and then all the stuff that didn't make any sense, they just wrote it later. and shoved it in the movie.
Right, and which is something I didn't really like, honestly,
Yeah.
because it was all rushed. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it was rushed.
Some of it seemed really rushed. Mm-hmm. Other than that, some characters just, despite like the really, really good acting, I don't have nothing against the acting. I think it was great. Mm-hmm. But some of the dialogue and some of like the character motivations just make no sense.
A lot of the dialogue was kind of off. Like it like some parts, it was kind of weird with like certain quotes that Ocean said to Brad Pitt.
Especially when you're doing like that one thing where they talk about like, oh, we need an ace in the hole, or we need a Jack Daniel, and they're talking about certain like characters when they like, for example, this isn't how it actually is in the movie. Like, for example, Jack Daniel would be like some explosive guy, but they don't say that. They just give you like code words, and a lot of the times they're just speaking in code, and you're just supposed to like guess what they're saying, and they say it so fast that when I was watching the movie, I had to like look up what they were actually saying at some points.
It's like when they're talking so fast, it just sounds like gibberish.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, kind of just expect you to understand what happened.
Exactly, right. And you really can't have a movie when you don't know what's going on, because it's not gonna, what I mean? Because you can't really follow the premise of how it goes.
Although I think they fixed that in the later two movies.
Right.
But for the first Ocean's 11 movie, the one in 2011, they just kind of or 2003.
Mm-hmm. It was 2003.
Yeah. It was just kind of it seemed rushed. That's just my major takeaway from it, is it seemed really, really rushed.
Right.
And back to character motivations, like the entire time during the montage when they were like getting together the crew, a lot of the times they had to do it in like 10 seconds, and they give them like a, hey, do you want to do this thing, wink wink.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, sure.
And then
like, they never explains why they agreed to do so. They just like, okay, I'll join this heist.
Yeah, and like it's like how he basically had he had to pretty much, like, you know what I mean, he had to pay them to join his crew.
Some of them they paid, and other people were just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do this because the movie requires this character to do
right.
So. And one final thing is Julia Roberts' character, Danny's wife. Her whole character just seemed
just not
on part.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you notice in certain scenes how a lot of the cast was like looking at her as
like
as a sexual being, right? And like they didn't really like what I mean. That's all I looked at her for, because they didn't look at her for help. They just looked at her because she was a good-looking woman.
Yeah, and then like what I was going to talk about is her whole relationship with Danny and Garcia is so like nonsensical and comedic that it makes no sense.
No, it
like
doesn't.
The entire time that she was talking to Danny, she never explains why she divorced her, other than like, oh, he's a criminal. Well, but then like the next scene,
right?
At the end of the movie.
What I wish they did with that is I wish that they added, like, at the start, like how in certain movies how they have flashbacks.
Yeah, like why are they together?
Right, and like it gives you like a prologue of how they met each other.
And it's certain things she says, again, especially during the end of the movie, she obviously knew that he was a criminal, and it's just now a problem now that she goes to jail.
Right. It's like a relationship Bonnie and Clyde had. You know what I mean? Because like how they fell in love and they went on with their way to steal.
The only difference is that Bonnie doesn't exist and Bonnie only wants money. That's kind of what I got from her.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the whole there's a scene in the movie with Garcia where I forget exactly what happens, but basically Garcia gets like blackmailed by Danny. And he's like, you can have all your money back and then some if you are willing to give my wife back. And he said, okay, sure. And then his wife was actually watching the footage of that happening. And so when Garcia comes out, he's like, oh, wow, I couldn't believe you did that. I couldn't believe that you were willing to give me up.
Right.
And, like, this guy is losing his entire livelihood.
Yes.
And there's, like, nothing he can do about it. I severely, severely doubt that he actually meant that.
Well, and if you look at it also, it's the same way with Ocean. He pretty much, his whole life was falling down the drain, like, if you think about it. Because, I mean, he just got out of prison, and he's already planning another heist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not really the best go-to idea, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like what you said, all the actors just came into a big bunch, and they all said, you know what? We're going to do this, and we're going to see how it goes.
Right. There's this. It is what it is. Again, I still think the movie was good.
Mm-hmm.
I just think at some points they were trying too hard. They were going too fast.
Right. Yes.
And they were going for this super bombastic thing. But when you go for such a high standard and such a bombastic feeling, eventually you're just going to lose that.
Well, and eventually you're going to have flaws, no matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? No matter like whether
regardless
where you are.
regardless of the movie, there's always a flaw. There's no such thing as a perfect movie.
And that's the truth for every movie. I mean, it's
Right.
like it's always going to have its flaws, and it's it's pros and cons. But
I still
mean,
like the Ocean movies.
Oh,
See,
yeah,
I've seen
of
them,
course.
I've seen
Right.
all three of them and the original one like 4 times. So I do like the movie. I just want it to be better.
Right.
And speaking of better heist movies, Italian Job.
Oh my goodness, yeah. The Italian Job, in my opinion, was one of the greatest heist films, like for its time and for that year.
Right.
And plus, it had a box office like smash, dude. Like the record was like 160 million in one day. It was insane.
It is. I think they did the whole heist thing a lot better. Like it's kind of a. I will say that like if it wasn't for the Ocean movies, Italian Job probably wouldn't be a movie right now. Just because. Like everyone's saying, "Oh, an Ocean movie did so good, so let's make heist movies."
Yeah, because
So I will give Ocean that point.
Because the Ocean's movies basically like elevated the Italian Job to even become a thing,
Right.
And the whole cast, like Jason Statham, all of them, they did a really fantastic job, in my opinion, in that movie.
But let's just one of the examples of why I think the Italian Job was a little bit better than the Ocean's movies is the planning.
Yes,
in the Italian Job,
the planning was very
they
on
sat
point.
you down and you got to see every part of the plan. Nothing was uncurved. While Ocean's movies, I guess, sort of, yes, there was a plan. But like I said earlier, sometimes it just like they put the plan together after the fact that it was happening. Or it was in the moment.
Right.
Which, again, this also has 2 different feels. The Italian Job is obviously more of a by the books criminal getting money thing, while the Ocean movies are more like James Bondish, more of a spectacle, trying to prove a point, tuxedos and stuff.
So, so in your opinion, CJ, our final thoughts in our, you know what I mean, of what we thought. In general, I'm just gonna put it, I'm gonna come clear. Great movie, very bad plot.
I liked the plot. I think it's the execution.
Yeah.
The execution definitely could have been better.
Right.
Smart, but a little too smart. Almost.
Right.
Like they're trying so hard to be super classy and super ultra intelligence, but sometimes it just goes over your audience heads.
And especially because in that time frame, it was the early 2000s, so a lot of this stuff was very fancy, and classy. People were trying to, they were trying to rush it all at one time. But in reality, if you do that in real life, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. But so when I was watching the movie and stuff, when they were trying so hard to be smart, I had to pause it. Watch it.
I paused it
interwebs.
3 times. I paused it 3 times.
And I had to process wait, how'd they do that?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah. Well, because they didn't explain it, so you're sitting there thinking to yourself, wonder if this actually happened in reality.
Yeah, but no, I still enjoyed the movie. I don't want people thinking that we just it's awful. No, I still like the movie. I just want it to be better.
But yeah, so those are our final thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to our conversation on this topic.
Stay with us for the next episode.
The next episode is about
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Okay.
Okay. That was a little dramatic, but okay.
Yeah, those movies. The laser guys.
The guys.
Laser sword guys.
The guys who have sabers
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed, and tune in on the next episode of
Movie Busters.
Yes, sir. All right. Catch you guys later.
Thanks.